What's up, guys? It's your boys Awoki back with another of the Chris Watts and Nichol Kessinger video, and this is the part 2 to the video that I posted like a day or two ago from Anna Elise, 10 to Life, with the Chris Watts deep dive, blaming the Mistress, the dark secrets, his double life, and Nichol Kessinger. This is the part 2 of the continuation of this video, so if you've not watched that video, it's down in the description below. Watch that one first and then come back and watch this one. But if you've watched the first one and you're ready for this one, let's get into it. We're going to be watching this video right now from Annie Elise. If you guys have not watched her or subscribed to her yet, make sure you guys check out the link in the description. Make sure you guys go give her some love, subscribe, comment, like, and share. You know the deal. But on this channel, again, thank you guys for all this love and support you have done thus far. But for those that have not subscribed yet, make sure you guys subscribe, comment, like, and share right now. Hit the bell icon next to it so when I do post videos like this one, you guys will get that little ring notification that I've posted that video, and then you guys can watch, comment, like, and share. And with that being said, let's get into part 2. Let's take a look.
Her several text messages saying things like, if you take the kids somewhere, please let me know where they're at. Can you call me, please? Where are you? But after one of these calls, Chris also called the daycare that the girls went to. And according to the school's officials, he called to unenroll his daughters, which...
And then, like we watched the video yesterday, Sandy Rusek was calling the school 3 times because they were supposed to start school that day. I didn't know it was that day. I thought they were supposed to start in like the week after or the week following after that. No, it was August 13th that they were going. It's almost like a school / daycare, so forth. But that's when we found out that Sandy Rusek was supposed to be she was calling 3 times, and then Chris asked if they were still there or if they were there, and then he unenrolled them in school. That made no sense that he did that. So
I gotta say, it is just super, super suspicious if you ask me. If your children are missing, you're not calling their school to unenroll them.
Exactly.
That seems a little premature. But that wasn't all. The detectives also discovered that Chris had been keeping an even more massive secret from them. Shanann was right. He was having an affair.
Oh.
He was having an affair with a coworker named Nichol Kessinger. And boy, oh boy, once the police got a hold of Nicole's phone, it painted a very clear picture.
But the thing that bothers me the most is they didn't look at her like record of the health app, which they could have done, which would have helped. So no sponsorship here.
So early the next morning, on August 15th, an FBI agent was able to corroborate Chris's claim that he was having an affair with Nicole. A regional manager from his job called to say that they had found some emails to prove it. And almost 2 hours later, Nicole called the police herself and told them that she was in fact having an affair with Chris.
Because Anadarko had sent the emails that they found to the police, and she wanted to make it look like she came with her own volition, but she came to make sure that her name was not slandered or dragged through the dirt. So
now, there's some speculation as to why she called the police at this specific time, and I will talk about that in a little bit because we have got a lot to talk about regarding Nicole. But for now, let's just say Nicole said that she called them because she says she saw Chris on the news, and she realized in that moment that he had been lying about his marriage and about Shanann's pregnancy. Nicole was under the impression, according to her, that the marriage was already over, and she had absolutely no idea that Shanann was pregnant.
Which over the course of a year on my channel, in the course of many, many years, we already know that is a complete poppycock or cocky pop. How do you say it? I can't remember.
So the investigators continued to do some digging, and they discovered that Chris and Nicole had started talking in the early months of summer in 2018.
Possibly sooner, because we can't say with 100% certainty that they were talking beforehand. But Miss Nicole was Googling Shanann and Chris a year before and was doing some weird Google searches and so forth like that. So you can't tell me that they were not talking beforehand.
Nicole also worked at Anadarko, and she would sometimes see Chris in the break room. Then one day, Chris went by her office and started talking to her. Then the casual break room chats turned into something more. And one day Chris went by her office and started talking to her there. Then he added her to his phone as a contact on June 14th.
And this all led to butt stuff?
They met up outside of the office later that month, and
somebody changed that face.
Chris had told Nichol that he and his wife were in the process of separating and that he was also almost divorced.
That is not her face.
So by July, while Shanann was away with the kids in North Carolina, Chris and Nichol were having a field day, seeing each other 4 to 5 times a week. Their relationship had also become physical by this point, and later that month, Chris told Nichol that his marriage was officially over.
But if you looked on Facebook, which Nichol Kessinger did, you would see that there was no divorce in sight at all. And there was nothing about, well, I shouldn't say there's nothing. There was tons of stuff about babies and how Shanann was talking about Chris being a great father. So again, that is a bunch of malarkey that she did not know.
On July 14th, they went on a date at the Shelby American Collection Car Museum. And while they were there, Shanann had tried calling Chris 4 different times.
Ignored.
But each time, the calls went unanswered. And just remember, this was all during the time where Shanann was freaking out because...
And I don't know about you, but I can tell you right now, and it's not that I'm controlling my fiance, but if she does not answer her phone, she better be deaf, dead, or mute, because she better answer that dang phone, because I want to make sure that you're alive, you're kicking, and I love you. And so I understand where Shanann got pissed off because she was calling her husband and wasn't answering the phone. Again, you better be dead, or you better be deaf, dead, or mute, and you better answer that phone.
Something seemed off with Chris. However, he would never tell her what it was.
Every time.
A few days later, on
unless I'm using the potty,
July 18th, Nichol sent Chris these semi-nude bikini pictures, which he decided to save on a secret.
And I went through the discovery and found out there was more pictures than just these ones. There was actually fully nude, of Nichol Kessinger. So just picture that with the, I miss your face.
App on his phone. It's an app that looks like a normal calculator app, but it's actually a secret place to store photos or videos so that if somebody happens to see that app, if they're going through your phone, they won't suspect that it's a hidden.
If you have to do that app, you're already cheating.
Folder, it's disguised, as a calculator. So she sends him all these like really cringe nude, semi-nude, I should say, bikini photos of herself, and he saves them into that app. Then 10 days after that, Chris and Nichol go on a trip together to the Great Sand Dunes National Park. And there they spent the night together. So he's ignoring his pregnant wife, his 2 young girls. He's making Shanann feel so insecure, all while he's in this romantic whirlwind with his coworker, while his wife is calling him, texting him, pleading with him, trying to make things better. And as if that wasn't bad enough, on July 30th, Chris gave Nichol a card that had a love letter written in.
And all of these are just sentences and stuff taken out of music and lyrics. They're not actually his words.
Inside of it. Then he just up and left to go see his family in North Carolina like nothing ever happened. All while Chris and Nichol continued to message and stay in contact with each other while Chris was away.
Again, there is a special place in hell for Chris.
And remember how I said that Chris was at that baseball game on August 11th and he had paid the $60 for that beer and salmon, and Shanann knew something was off about that?
Yep.
Well, no surprise, obviously, but Chris was actually on a date with Nichol that night. That's why the bill was so high. Which I gotta say, that is just so gross to me that he stuck his $2 with a babysitter so that he could go out on a date with his mistress.
I agree.
While his wife was on a work trip. You are the scum of the earth. And so when Shanann said that she thought that Chris was, getting it from somewhere else, she was right. Call it a woman's intuition. I always say a woman's gut feeling is the most powerful thing on the planet. And while she was in North Carolina...
Well, if a woman's gut could tell me the Powerball numbers, that'd be great.
Working, taking care of the kids, he was literally running around with a woman that he met at work. And on top of all of that, right before and after the girls went missing, Chris was searching online for different things like secluded vacation spots and 2-person cars.
When to say I love you.
He was also texting with a realtor the exact day that his family went missing. He was inquiring about selling his house.
That's messed up.
And at one point, the realtor asked why Shanann hadn't texted her at all, and Chris just said that he didn't know where she was.
Yeah, because
he asked the realtor to pray for them. Which, what a bizarre conversation, right? I mean, I would love to know what was going through that realtor's head in that moment.
No
when some
kidding.
guy texts and casually just mentions, oh, by the way, my wife is missing, but don't let that get in the way of me selling our house.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that he was searching a 2-person car. Look, I'm no expert, but to me, that signals premeditation. You only are going to get a 2-person car if you know that you're not going to need 2 car seats behind you. So the girls are still missing. Nobody knows anything.
Agreed.
All the while, he is still continuing to text Nichol about their life together, even when people were actively searching for Shanann, Cece, and Bella.
And he wasn't.
Now, I know that that's a lot. And
I know he was told not to, but you cannot tell me if my child was missing, I would not be out there searching for my child. I would be. No ifs, ands, or buts.
That's all of what the police learned in just one day. Just one day of searching his phone. And also on that same day, or more accurately, that night, they got a phone call from Shanann's mom, Sandy. She told the police that she was positive that Chris did something to Shanann. He had hurt her. She noticed how he had been acting very weird lately, and she added that if he did in fact try to hurt Shanann, she wouldn't be able to fight back because of her lupus. Sandy was particularly afraid that Chris was going to pour oil on the bodies and dispose of them somewhere. It was a very, very specific concern of hers, and she told the police about it. So on August 15th, now 2 days after Shanann and the girls had been reported as missing, Chris took that polygraph test. Now, while all of this was going on, other officers were searching the Watts family home. They noticed how clean everything was in the home, but otherwise nothing really seemed too out of the ordinary.
He cleaned everything.
At first, that is. Because when they went to the master bedroom, they noticed that the bed was completely stripped. There weren't any sheets, no blankets, nothing. The search team ended up finding the top sheet and the pillowcases, but get this, they were shoved inside the kitchen trash can.
I do want to know why, too, when we looked at the carpet that was on the bottom of the stairs of the basement. It was there the morning or the day of the murders. But then the next day when they came back, that carpet was rolled up and put behind some, wrapping paper containers and some other over by that trampoline. And the dogs alerted on it, but they didn't do anything with it.
They also couldn't find a fitted sheet that matched the set. They couldn't find it anywhere. Now, by this point, as I'm sure you probably would be and have guessed, everybody was suspicious of Chris. His story just wasn't making any sense. His behavior was weird. The police knew that he was cheating on Shanann. I mean, there were so many red flags going on. So one of the CBI agents even told Chris that, given the circumstances, it would actually be really dumb for you to take a polygraph test, because if you did do something to the girls...
He didn't lawyer up. He was told his Miranda rights. He decided to talk. He didn't wait to do the polygraph test until, or he should have done the polygraph test after talking to his father. There's just like a whole bunch of things that he could have done that would have put a stop to this case and made it take longer, or possibly gone to trial and bringing in Nichol. But unfortunately, he confessed right off the bat super fast after they pretty much were on him with this good cop, bad cop kind of thing. Because Tammy was the good cop. The other guy was kind of like, quit your BS stuff. We know what you did, and so forth. So it just makes you wonder.
We're going to find out. But Chris said that it was okay. He had nothing to lie about. He wasn't going to lie.
Because he thought
so
he was going to get away with it.
Tons of polygraphs, obviously, in my training. I went to 10 weeks for training. I've been a polygrapher for about 5 years. I went to the best school in the country. So I want you to have confidence in the fact that if you had nothing to do with this disappearance, like, we're going to find that out today. Okay? I have the best training that...
To lie on a polygraph, for it to be a bad, or not bad test, but to show that you were completely lying, is a -4. he was like a negative 14 or 18. It was terrible. He's a good bad or liar.
We use the most validated testing
for testing purposes.
That's the way I'm going to ask you the question. So believe me, if you had nothing to do with this, I will be able to show them that today. Okay, so that should give you some confidence that you know, this is how, like, you're going to be cleared today if you had nothing to do with it. Okay.
I wonder if he Googled how to like go against the polygraph, how to beat the polygraph test, because a lot of people that go on like Maury Povich or Steve and stuff like that, some of them have Googled it, that how to beat by like breathing a certain way and holding your breath or making your heart irregularly beating or taking the D word, DRUG by the chance, to take medicine like to get your adrenaline going. It's just unbelievable how people try to see and think that they're going to beat a polygraph test. I'm wondering if Chris tried to do that.
That me, like when I went to their rooms, just kind of like, you know, make their beds. It's like I wasn't going to turn the rain machines on, you know, like I wasn't like, you know, going to read them a book.
He's talking way too much. Like, she doesn't care. She wants to find out if he's a liar or not.
I wasn't gonna kiss them goodnight. I wasn't gonna, like, you know, do that. I wasn't gonna play in the playroom. I wasn't giving them like their nightly snack, like their nighttime snack. I wasn't, you know, giving them their medicine. I wasn't, you know, getting them dressed for bed. All that, like, it just hit me. It's like I'm not turning the monitor on to watch them because they're not here. It's like, where are they? And that night was just like, I didn't even want to stay in the house that night, but
yeah, okay.
I knew I had to, just in case, like, maybe they came home, maybe
put his daughters in
they were in that
oil
front door,
drums,
garage door, or something would happen. But nothing happened that night. So I just laid in bed and took phone calls and texts from all our friends I couldn't sleep either, and just asking for prayers, just asking prayers in general, just like, these kids are gonna come home. They're gonna come home safe. And the next day, well, detective, he called me about 2 a.m. just saying like, hey, we're gonna do like the missing persons report, and I'll get that all going. But yeah, it's like the next day, like when everything like started happening as far as the news crews like pulling in, and then all the K9 units and the drones flying over my house, it was just like, it all set in, like, this is not, she's not, they think something happened. Because all this right here, this means that, okay, my worst fear, that's where this is going right now. Because I thought she was just at somebody's house and she was safe.
His worst fear is losing booty stuff with Nichol. He don't care about Shanae, Bella, Celeste, or Nico anymore.
Just going the other direction with all this going on, with the dogs coming in, with the news media, everything just kind of happening. It's like, all right, this has gone to a totally different direction. And it's like I was
because he wasn't expecting
when all my friends like were coming over to give me some support. I knew that, like, all right, like I was happy all my friends just came over to just support. I didn't want to be alone at that point in time. Like this is the time you don't want to be alone at all. And my friends are supporting me all through this, and
I want to be alone and looking for my kid.
I want them to come home safe, like wherever they are. I hope they are safe, and I really hope they can just come home.
After the polygraph test, Chris was left alone for a little while. 2 agents came back into the room, and that's when they shared the results with Chris.
So, it is completely clear that you were not honest during the testing. I think you already know that. You did not pass the polygraph test, right? Okay. So now we need to talk about what actually happened. And I feel like you're probably ready to do that.
I didn't lie to you on that polygraph, I promise. Chris, I'm messed up. It's time.
It's time.
Just stop for a minute. Take a deep breath.
Good cop, bad cop. Good cop, bad cop.
Take a deep breath right now.
I like this guy.
There's a reason you feel sick to your stomach. And when people hold stuff inside, it makes you physically ill. And I can just tell on your face, I could tell from the second you walked in that you were wanting to just come clean and just be done with this.
Was he though?
And I appreciate that because you knew sitting down in that chair that you weren't going to pass today. And you knew I was going to find out because I told you that. And then you continued to stay knowing that you could, at the end, say, you know what? I just need to get this off my chest. Like, I just need to tell you what happened. We're not here to play games. We're not here to do any of that with you. We just want to know what happened. So can you start from the beginning and tell us what happened?
Everything that I had told you, I did not lie on this polygraph. I don't know how much I could tell you right now. Like, I did not. It's not even an option right now because you did not pass the polygraph. So I know you were being deceptive. So that's not even an issue right now. The issue right now is what happened to Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. That's the issue right now. Okay.
Okay. So let's talk about that.
I want to be in his, like, I don't want to be in his mind, but I want to know what he, like, felt while she was just drilling him. And then he was just over there like, it's time to, like, I just want to know, like, his gut-wrenching feeling knowing he was caught and he was screwed and his life was over because of what he did to those girls.
I know you want to tell us. I can see it in your face. Holding this lie in is going to do nothing for you.
I know this. Like, okay. I'm not, like, trying to, like, cover things up. Like,
yeah, but you kind of are because it's normal. Normal people would do that. Normal people that make a mistake initially are going to go, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do anything. That's normal. I would expect that. It's just like if you ask your kid, you know, did you write on the wall? And they go, no. And you're like, you have a marker on your hand. Like, I know you just wrote on the wall. And they're like, oh, okay. That's a natural reaction that someone's going to initially lie about something like that and then eventually tell the truth. So this is your eventually telling the truth time. This is where the rubber meets the road.
And I think
right?
This is when he's like, I want to talk to my dad.
Don't let this continue any longer, please.
I'm not trying to make anything continue. Like, I want them back home, like.
But you know they're not coming back home. You know that.
I don't know in the back of my head. I hope they come back home.
But you know they're not.
I hope they come back home. Mm-hmm. And I don't know they're not coming back home.
At one point, Chris said that he probably failed because he hadn't talked about his affair with Nichol before. But the investigators knew that that was not the only
I was going to say the questions were about Shanann, not Nichol.
Reason why he failed. And then Chris asked if he could talk with his dad privately. His dad had flown in from North Carolina the previous day. So finally, when Chris's dad came in and they had their private conversation, Chris confessed. Well, I should say, he confessed to his first version. So according to Chris, on August 13th, he and Shanann had talked about separating, about divorcing. She freaked out, and he says she went upstairs and that's when she smothered Bella and Cece, killing them. He says he didn't see her do it, but he did hear some commotion coming from upstairs. So he went upstairs to see what was going on, and that's when he found out what Shanann had done. So he says he freaked out, and in a complete rage, he strangled.
I wonder if there's any people out there that actually believe that side of the story. Unfortunately, I think there is. We've heard some people that say that Shanann is the one that took out the girls. But it's just a bunch of malarkey that they sit there and are trying to say that.
Strangled Shanann to death. Afterwards, he then put the bodies in the backseat of his truck. This was around 5 a.m. on the morning of the 13th. Then, he drove to one of those oil sites where he worked, and he buried Shanann in a shallow grave. Then, he put Bella and Cece in the crude oil tanks. He even told the police exactly where they could find their remains. So that night, the investigators went out to that site, and they found Shanann's body. This was around 11 p.m. They also found that missing bedsheet from the bedroom, also parts of a broken rake that was all near Shanann's body. And Chris admitted that he had used that rake to cover her body with brush. However, even though they had found Shanann at this point, they still had to wait until the next day to get Cece and Bella. So on August 16th, the police went back to the site. They had to climb to the very top of the tanks to get to the openings. I mean, we're talking 20 feet high. And up there, they saw a tuft of blonde hair on one of the tanks. Hair that of course belonged to one of these little girls. They also noted how small the openings were. They were only about 8 inches in diameter, so they wondered how Chris was able to possibly squeeze their little bodies through that opening. Did he contort them? Did he break bones? How did they fit through an 8-inch opening? They ended up draining all of the oil out of the tanks so that they could recover the bodies, and this took hours, but then they finally got the girls' bodies out. Now, no one actually believed the story that Chris had told about Shanann killing the girls. She was a great mother, a protective mother. She never would have done that. Agreed. I mean, no matter how upset she was about separating from Chris, she never would have killed her daughters. Never. So instead, they thought that he was lying, and that he had been lying the entire time. When he was calling and texting her, asking her where she was and where the girls were, that was all just to cover his own tracks. Which honestly, he didn't do that great of a job at. He was pretty suspicious from the start. So on August 21st, Chris was officially charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, plus 2 additional first-degree charges for the death of a child who was under 12 years old. He was also charged with the unlawful termination of a pregnancy and 3 counts of tampering with a body. On September 1st, a funeral was held for Shanann.
You know who should else get in trouble for tampering with a body? I'm just saying, my opinion, my theory, Nichol Kessinger.
Anne, Cece, Bella, and unborn baby Nico. The funeral was held in Pinehurst, North Carolina, and Chris was not mentioned once during the ceremony. When Chris did enter a plea on November 6th, 2018, he pled guilty to all of the charges. He finally admitted that he had killed Shanann and his daughters. And at his sentencing on November 19th, Shanann's mother gave a very emotional testimony where she asked the district attorney not to seek the death penalty.
God makes no mistakes on who he puts in your life. Marriage is about love, trust, and friendship and unity. We marry for sickness and health, to death do us part. Our daughter Shanann loved you with all of her heart. Your children loved you to the moon and back. Shannon's family was her world. Shanann put a crown on your head. But unfortunately, the day that you took their life, God removed that crown. We loved you like a son. We trusted you. Your faithful wife trusted you. Your children adored you, and they also trusted you. Your daughter Bella Marie sang a song proudly. And I don't know if you got to see it, but it was, "Daddy, you're my hero." I have no idea who gave you the right to take their lives. But I know God and his mighty angels were there at that moment to bring them home to paradise. God gives us free will. So not only did you take the family of 4, your family of 4, you took your own life. I want the world to know that our daughter and her children were so loved by us. There will always be protected by God and his mighty angels. I didn't want death for you because that's not my right. Your life is between you and God now, and I pray that he has mercy for you. From Shannon's mother, Bella Marie, Celeste Catherine, and Nico Lee's, Nana. Thank you, Your Honor.
Now this is far from over, because we still have to talk about Nichol, about her phone searches, and everything else. So much that makes people believe that she truly was involved in this.
I think so, very much so.
So Chris was sentenced to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole. Plus, he was sentenced to 48 years for the unlawful termination of the pregnancy and another 36 years for burying the bodies. But it didn't stop there. Oh no. Because the same day as Chris's sentencing, Shanann's parents filed a wrongful death suit against him. And almost a year later, in November of 2019, a judge ordered Chris to pay her parents $6 million. Chris was, and still is, completely broke, so he couldn't actually pay them the $6 million, but it was more of like a symbolic victory for Shanann's parents. Now, needless to say, Chris did not have a good time in prison. Not at all. I mean, besides the fact that prison is definitely not a nice place for pretty much anyone, he was a very famous child killer. and there were a lot of threats to his safety, so much so that it ended up being bad enough that he needed to be transferred to Wisconsin. Then on February 18th, 2019, investigators from the FBI interviewed Chris at this prison. This was his first interview that he gave since he confessed, or I should say since he confessed to his version. And he finally told the entire story of his affair with Nichol. And more importantly, how he...
I still think it's not 100% accurate.
...ended up murdering his entire family. He said that what interested him in Nichol was that she was the one who approached him. She showed interest in him first, so it made him feel really good about himself. I should also mention that early on in his marriage, he was, I wouldn't say overweight, but not in the best of shape. And then as he started this affair with Nichol, he started getting like ripped. He lost a lot of weight. So he was definitely feeling more confident. And then in this interview, he says, yeah, she just made me feel really good about myself. She's the one who pursued me. She sought me out. He claimed that Nichol also wanted to have sex with him all the time, that it was just easy for him to talk with her, to be with her. He didn't worry that he was going to say something that she would find dumb or off-putting, and apparently Nichol just made him so happy that it made him decide to kill his entire family. And if not for her, he might have just continued living his life the same way that he always had. But he says instead, on the morning of August 13th, he woke up for work and he tried to smother Bella and Cece in their beds. Then he went over to Shanann and he told her that he wanted to talk. He told her that the relationship was over, he wanted a divorce, and he says that Shanann did not take this well. So much so that she told him that he would never see the girls again. So for whatever reason, he says this just made him like go into a blind rage. He just flipped out, which I don't know why, because by his own admission, he had already tried to murder his daughters. So he knew that he wasn't going to see them again either way. But now he was just angry. And so he says he got on top of Shanann and he choked her to death. However, and
with her having lupus, she wasn't able to fight back.
Haunting and harrowing detail, in the middle of this barbaric attack on Shanann, Bella walked into the room and she asked what was going on. She asked if her mom was okay. Chris was surprised that she was still alive, but he told her Shanann just wasn't feeling.
He said they looked like they had bruises on their faces and round circles around their eyes. I don't think he did it twice, but it could be like the whole thing that was haunting him and what was about to happen and stuff like that was trying to warn him, and he just didn't take the warning.
Feeling well, go back to your room. Then he put a plastic bag around Shanann's head and feet. He rolled her up in that bedsheet, and he put her body on the floor of his work truck. Then he brought both of the girls out of their room and put them in the backseat of his truck because, as it turned out, both of them were still alive. He told them that their mom was really sick and that they were going to take her to the hospital all together as a family. The girls, feeling safe and loved and protected by their dad, they napped in the car while he drove. Each of them had their blankie, and Cece was also holding onto a stuffed animal. Chris then drove 40 miles to the oil site. He parked, took Shanann's body out of the truck, and he buried it there. And as he was pulling Shanann's body from the truck, Bella and Cece asked him what he was doing to Mommy. After burying Shanann, he went back to the truck. And there, he put Cece's blanket over her head and smothered her. Then, he got her body out of the truck, he stuffed it into one of those oil tanks, and he went back to the truck for Bella. Now, this next detail makes me absolutely sick to my stomach. It never gets easier, and I've been following this case for years, like I said, and I've covered it before, but never gets easier to say. It's something you will never be desensitized to. But before he killed little Bella, she turned to him and she asked if he was going to do the same thing to her that he had done to her sister, Cece. She also put up a fight and she yelled, "Daddy, no," before he ultimately smothered her. And it just makes me absolutely sick and enraged and just, as a mom myself, heartbroken for these little girls to not only have witnessed what he was doing to their mother, and then to have Bella seen him kill Cece and then dispose of her body and come back for her. And remember, they thought that they were taking their mom to the hospital. They felt safe enough with their dad that they fell asleep in the car. They were taking naps in the car. So for her to cry out and say, "Are you going to do the same thing to me? Daddy, please no," and fought him off, a toddler doing this. It is sick. And he had that entire drive to change his mind, 40 miles to change his mind. They had already miraculously survived one of his attempts. He could have changed his mind at any moment, and he didn't. He didn't. He just killed them so heartlessly, so evil, just truly, truly diabolical. So once he killed Bella, he dumped her into the other tank, and he said that when he heard the girls' bodies hit the oil, he knew that they were really dead. He said he considered killing himself at this time too, but he decided not to because he didn't want to traumatize the person who would find his body. Which, great, so thoughtful of you. He then drove by a construction site and he dumped his clothing and the girls' blankets. And it's been reported, but I haven't been able to verify it conclusively, that cadaver dogs at one time led the police to these construction bins, but they were just ignored. So Chris then said he changed into another pair of work clothes that he had in his truck. Then he got breakfast at a nearby 7-Eleven because nothing will work up an appetite like a quadruple murder on your wife, your 2 daughters, and your unborn son. He said that he had no plan about what to do afterward because he hadn't been planning on killing them at all in advance. That it happened all in a moment of rage after hearing Shanann say that he wouldn't be able to see his kids if they separated. That it was something he never even thought about doing. He said he felt like another person was taking over his body.
And he said later on that he said, this is the last night, the last time that I'm going to tuck my little girls into bed. He had this planned.
But how is that true when you admitted to a prior attempt on the 2 daughters? Also, remember that search for 2-person car that happened earlier? Like, how is that not premeditated? You clearly knew what you were doing. You had a huge window of time, too, to stop yourself and to cool off after you killed Shanann when you were driving that 40-mile distance, but you didn't. So how long was that fit of rage, that blackout rage, really lasting for? I don't buy it. Now, Chris's actual words were, "This was like the epitome of being angry, the epitome of showing rage, the epitome of losing your mind." And who really knows if this was some spur-of-the-moment thing? I personally don't think it was.
No,
but
it was not.
Chris has changed his story so many times. He had said that he tried killing the girls first, then killed Shanann. Now he was saying it was some sort of moment of rage reaction. I mean, honestly, who knows? He also claims that he wasn't at all expecting Shanann's friends to jump into action the way that they did. He didn't expect the police to get so suspicious so fast, and he also said he was planning on pleading guilty before he was even arrested. I guess he just didn't want to draw out the legal process. He knew that it would be difficult for Shanann's family to go through a lengthy trial, so...
It was probably the fastest case that I've ever seen, signed, sealed, delivered, done.
Maybe he was trying to win some brownie points by saying that. But if you think all of this is bad, it gets even worse because there's more. According to Chris, he was slipping Shanann OxyContin. No one knows where he got the Oxy, and he also said he would never reveal to anyone where he got it from. But as we go into Nichol,
it's gotta be like family.
There is a looming suspicion about who facilitated that Oxy and who obtained it and how he received it and then started slipping it to his pregnant wife.
They had to have Googled this, like what could stop a pregnancy, and they probably found out that it was the Oxy, and you can't tell me that it was, like, we don't know, like, extravagantly, is that a word, of Chris Watts's search history. We know he tried to talk about love and when to say it and how do you know and sort of like that, but did we actually Google what he might have done more or looked into what he Googled even more?
Wife. According to Chris, he gave Shanann this drug so that he could try and induce a miscarriage. He thought that it would be easier to leave Shanann if she miscarried and if she wasn't pregnant, because the baby made him feel trapped. And right before she was killed, Shanann was experiencing some very intense stomach pains, which definitely could have been from Chris drugging her. And remember North Carolina when she got so ill? Did he drug her before the trip? So before we get into Nichol, let's wrap up with Chris. Chris is still in prison in Wisconsin, and it's reported that he mostly keeps to himself. He currently works as a custodian, and he has also become very religious, which... talk about a jailhouse cliche, right? But at one point, he befriended another inmate, and together they self-published a book of prayers called Revelation in the Reckoning. Prayers in the book reads, "My past is a blueprint, and the devil is the architect. While I watch his fallen ones build stone upon stone every day, I see these walls as insurmountable, a barrier that blocks me from enjoying your love, your peace, and of your joy, O Lord. You are my master builder. Help me walk around these walls, sound the trumpet, and shoot that they may come crashing down like the walls of Jericho." Now, in a lot of these prison exchanges, I did a recent...
He should have found God before, I'm just saying.
...update, but I'm going to mention it here. he also references Nichol. He calls her a Jezebel and does it with some really weird religious scripture in like some kind of weird flowery type of way. But basically he calls her this Jezebel who like had her sex powers over him and like he was fixated on her and that Nichol made him do this. He also mentions that it's premeditated. So I will link that in the description of this episode so that you can go listen to that update of like the Nichol Jezebel situation. But he does talk about her and acknowledge that she did know more about this and that she is the one that drove him to do this, not, you know, verbally making him do it necessarily.
So let's bring her in. Why is it so hard? I said I would pay for it.
But that because of her, that's why he did this. But I also think it's interesting because he has never flipped on her. He won't even tell people where the oxy came from. And I know, I keep talking about that, but we are going to get to that. So now, while Chris doesn't talk to many people in prison, he sure does have a lot of pen pals that he writes to frequently. And of course, just like Wade Wilson, the guy with all the tattoos on his face, that complete kiosk idiot, these pen pals are a bunch of women who find him attractive, who feel bad for him, who think that they can change him. Even some who think that Shanann was the problem, which, gross. So gross. Now, one woman, Sherilyn Cradle, did an interview with Inside Edition.
Cradle or
and
Cradle?
in this interview, she talked about some of the letters that Chris had written to her. And in these letters, Chris admitted to thinking about and planning the murders way beforehand.
Oh, yeah,
it wasn't necessarily some random act of rage like he had told the investigators. Sherilyn also visited Chris a couple of times, and she said that when he talked about the murders, his eyes would almost go dark, almost like he wasn't there, almost like he was reading a script. He talked about the murders in just such a casual and matter-of-fact way. Chris also still keeps in contact with his mom, Cindy, and she has done interviews as well, and she's something else, guys. She has said that she will always support Chris and that she can't ever understand what went wrong or what happened, but according to her, there was never anything throughout his childhood that indicated that he was capable of doing something like this. She said that he was a very quiet, very good kid, that he had a couple of close friends, but was pretty reserved. But she also said some really weird things about Shanann, and that she still has doubts about Chris's guilt. Take a listen.
It was always a little strange that
I hate how
she always said
Shanann.
a lot of things about Chris in front of me that I didn't like. Like, this isn't the kind of person I would date. He doesn't know how to do this, or he doesn't know how to do that. He looks like a skater boy.
It's not even the question
Look
was
at his
asked.
hair. Look how much stuff he puts on his hair. It was just on and on and on, and I just got a bad feeling.
And they got married in 2012. Did they get married in North Carolina?
They did.
We didn't attend.
How was that?
Oh, we didn't attend.
Really?
We didn't attend because Shanann and I just couldn't get along, and I didn't like the way she treated him.
What do you know about their
She treated him like a
marriage
king.
and their issues?
Oh, very little. Very little. You can only observe. I could only observe what I saw when I was around them. Christopher always seemed anxious, and he when she needed something, I mean, he would run. He wouldn't walk, he would run, he would get it. He just always seemed to be right there at her beck and call.
And did that seem odd to you? Or?
Very odd. It was very odd. He just seemed...
She obviously didn't have a good marriage then, because you do things for each other. You help them out. You love them. You take care. Like, why is it bad that he did things for her? She did a lot for him too. Jesus.
nervous.
Criminy.
But I think as the years went on, I think it just being in that kind of a relationship, which the social worker even said that marriage should have ended a long time ago.
No social worker would say that. I'm sorry.
Shanann's
For
pregnancy
any social workers that might maybe watch my video, would you say that?
and was what did Chris tell you about that? Was he excited?
No, I don't think he was. I think it was a shock. to him. And he said that they have been talking about divorce. That
he was talking about divorce.
They are not compatible anymore, and he was not happy anymore.
So he said this to them beforehand. So they knew that he wanted out.
And I finally thought, he's finally seen the light.
And I take it Chris had never been in trouble with the law?
Never. He's got one speeding ticket and didn't even know about that.
Tell me what happened when they were reported missing. What did you find out? How did you find out? Who told you?
I think Ronnie called me. Ronnie called me and said that they're missing, and I thought, I don't believe it. I didn't believe they were missing. I believe that she was going to punish Chris.
Like Nichol said.
She was just going to punish him, take the girls, and just punish him. I had no idea.
Punish him for what?
Of anything else. Christopher called and said, Mom, they're searching the house. I said, okay. That's fine. I mean, and I still was not worried. I was not worried. I just thought Shanann had run off with girls. All I want is the truth. I just want the truth.
So do we. Tell your son to tell us.
That's it. And I know Chris, he would take responsibility. And I guess...
He hasn't completely. He needs to tell us what
maybe he is.
What was
I don't
Nichol
know.
doing.
I don't know. I just can't see him doing that.
What do you think the truth is about how Shanann and Bella and Celeste died?
Oh, God, I don't know anymore, honestly.
You do. You just don't want to admit.
I don't know his frame of mind, and I don't know his frame of mind. Because why would you plead guilty to something you didn't do?
Oh,
and that's
she said
all I want to know. Why would you plead guilty if you didn't do it? If you told your dad you didn't do it?
He told the dad.
And that's what I want to know.
To Shanann.
And they said, well, you'll find all that out. Christopher will talk to you when and after he's sentenced. Well, isn't that too late then? I mean, isn't it too late? What if he tells me, no, I didn't do it? I just took this plea deal because they told me I was going to go to jail anyways. I just want the truth. All of us just want the truth. That's all. But I would like to know what triggered it. How can a normal young man, and he's normal. He was normal, but he wasn't evaluated when he came into the system. He wasn't normal if he did this.
It must be bewildering.
You said he was normal.
It's bewildering to me. It is. It is absolutely. How does this happen? How did this happen? And I go back in my mind thinking, was there something I didn't pick up with on Chris? But I can't think of anything except he was quiet.
It sounds like in your own mind, you're unsure as to what happened.
Yes.
Have you reconciled the idea that he could have done all of this?
Yes.
No, she
and that scares me to death.
That's why she says we don't care what you did.
To think that he could have done all of this.
She's accepted the fact that he's taken part in this, and she says that. We don't care what you did.
I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there right now. But I don't see why he's pleading guilty.
Because he did it.
I'd fight. I'd fight to the end. But then you ask yourself, would a normal person dispose of the bodies the way he did? And
he was mad at Shanann, so he separated them from the girls. And his favorite music from Metallica, The Battery, says murder the family and something about the batteries.
I would have called 911 if it happened like that.
I mean, this woman is just totally bizarre. I mean, first of all, read the room. Read the room. I understand standing by your child, but get a grip, lady. He murdered and admitted to murdering your grandchildren, his wife, 3 of your grandchildren. Get a clue. Amen. And the way that she victim blames Shanann and talks about how she never liked her as if her son isn't the terrible one in this situation, it is just So disgusting on so many different levels. Now, multiple people have also come out and said that they also, too, had affairs with Chris. 2 different men, as a matter of fact, said that they slept with Chris, including somebody named Trent. Trent did an interview and said that when he started a relationship with Chris, he was under the impression that Chris had separated from his wife. Chris told Trent that he loved him, but ultimately, apparently, they ended the relationship way before the murders ever happened. This is just Trent's account, and naturally, Chris has denied that he ever had an affair with Trent or any other man for that matter. He also denied the story that came from one woman who claimed that she met Chris one time in a parking lot at a Chick-fil-A just to have sex. He said that's not true. That
What's more romantic and sexy getting done in the back seat of a car in a Chick-fil-A?
Never happened. But now we need to talk about Nichol, because the one person that we do know for sure that Chris had an affair with is Nichol Kessinger.
You can just look into those eyes and just know the just evil and hatred this woman has.
And there are a lot of people who think that not only did she know about the murders, but that maybe she was somehow involved. So as I mentioned, I've already done a deep dive about Nichol, and I will link that below, which I really recommend you guys go listen, because there is so much information about this woman, which if I went into everything, we would probably be here for like another several hours. But I do want to go over some of the especially suspicious details and red flags. So like I mentioned earlier, the investigators found out about Nichol pretty early on in the investigation. Remember, she called investigators herself. She told them that she had seen the news reports about how Shanann and the girls were missing, and that's what told her she needed to call the police. And it was almost like she was kind of trying to be the Amber Fry in the situation, who was Scott Peterson's mistress.
Which she Googled, by the way.
Because Amber Fry did do the right thing. As soon as she heard from friends that Scott was married, that his pregnant wife was missing, she called the police and even wore wires and recorded her phone calls with Scott to like do the right thing. And the reason I say that it seems as though Nichol was trying to follow that blueprint, it wasn't in an authentic way, in my opinion, because she even Googled, which we'll talk about more of her searches, but she Googled how much was Amber Fry's book deal. She Googled this when the girls were missing. I can't remember if it was before they were found and while they were still missing or after they were found.
It was both.
She wanted to see how she could capitalize on this. It's truly disgusting.
It's sickening.
Anyways, a lot of people don't agree with this, that she was, this shocked mistress who had no idea. It was all unbeknownst to her. No. And one of the main reasons people don't believe this is because she reached out to the police almost immediately after Chris's manager had passed along that information about the affair. Remember those emails that they had found? It was almost like somebody had tipped her off, so now she wanted to get ahead of everything. The timing was very interesting. Nichol was also questioned by the investigators, and during these interviews, she said a lot of stuff that has since been proven to be false. For example, she acted like she didn't know that Chris was married when they started their relationship.
We've proved that wrong.
But it's since been proven that she did know that Chris was married. She also said that she told Chris that their relationship was over, that he needed to try and get back together with Shanann. He needed to try to fix his marriage and do it for the sake of his children. Apparently, this conversation happened while he was in North Carolina visiting the family. However, while Chris was in North Carolina, remember, he stayed in constant contact with Nichol. And their conversations, like the context of them, they never changed. They still flirted with each other and sent the type of messages that you would send to your boyfriend or your girlfriend.
But she wanted him to go to North Carolina to fix and rekindle the love and romance that he had for his wife. Really?
So it definitely wasn't like how you talk to somebody that you supposedly just ended a relationship with and were encouraging to have them repair their marriage. Plus, the police searched Nichol's phone and they found that on August 4th, she spent several hours searching for wedding dresses online. Again, not something that you would typically do after supposedly telling your boyfriend to fix his marriage with his wife. Now, in another shady detail, as if it's not looking good already, she did what we see people classically do when they are guilty. She deleted a ton of stuff from her phone right before she handed her phone over to the police, pretending or...
If you don't want somebody to see something, like a piece of paper, what are you going to do with it? Throw it in the trash. Put it in a shredder. Burn it.
Trying to act as though she was cooperating.
She wasn't.
For example, on the day that Shanann and the girls went missing, Nichol and Chris talked on the phone around 5 p.m. Then they talked again for 51 minutes at 11 p.m. But those
They're probably like, oh, we did it. We can finally run off to be together. And the next day, arrested.
Phone calls were deleted. Then on August 14th at 12:08 p.m., Nichol spent 4 hours searching the internet. She was searching things like interviews with Chris Watts, Shanann's disappearance, the words, "Can cops trace text messages?" And in her interview with the police, Nichol said that she found out about Shanann's disappearance one day after this, as if she was looking up all of those things without realizing that Shanann was missing, which make that timeline make sense. And of course, these searches on Nichol's phone were also eventually deleted. Even weirder, though, the police found that Nichol had been searching Shanann and Chris's names since 2017, way before she ever even officially met Chris.
How is this girl not looked at? How is this possible?
Maybe she saw Shanann there, got the job there to like suss out the situation and see, get close to, you know, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer, and then just became obsessed. I mean, there is data that shows that Nichol basically stalked Shanann's Facebook page too. She saw that post that she had dedicated to Chris on Father's Day. She saw her pregnancy announcement. But yet again, when it came time for questioning with the investigators, when she was trying to act all cooperative and helpful, according to Nichol, she supposedly didn't know that Shanann was pregnant. Nichol also said multiple times that she thought that Chris and Shanann were separating. But then there was data in her phone that showed that she had searched things like, "The man I'm having an affair with says he's leaving his wife." So, I don't know, I'm not Einstein, but it seems to me like maybe she knew they hadn't separated yet. If you think they're separated or you think that they're divorcing, you're not going to say, "Man I'm having an affair with says he's leaving his wife," are you? I don't know. That's just my opinion. Seems like a weird search. So when Nichol was interviewed by the police, they brought all of this up to her, and she seemed to get really frustrated when they did. She said that she couldn't give any details about the things that had happened such a long time ago. And she also said that she and Chris only went out a couple of times. But of course, the police found GPS.
They literally completely in like July, pretty much the whole time that Shanann was gone, every single day, they were sleeping together at her apartment. He barely went to the house anymore. It's like, and then she sits there like, "Oh, we were just casually dating." Like, no, you weren't, woman. I like to say the B word, but I can't because of YouTube guidelines.
Yes, data that proved the complete opposite of that. And on the day after Shanann went missing, before her body was even recovered, Nichol told Chris to pawn Shanann's wedding ring.
That's messed
because
up.
It had been left behind. They found it in the house. Again, I don't care if you're a mistress. I don't care if you were lied to by him. I don't care what the situation is. If a man's wife and daughters are missing and actively missing and they're searching for them and you tell him you should pawn her wedding ring that you just found, you are a horrible, horrible human being. Point blank, period. But what's even more sketchy is that Nichol had absolutely no alibi for when these murders happened.
Keep going,
on
girl.
August 13th at 6 a.m., her phone even pinged near Chris's house.
How much more of an air traffic controller do you have to be with evidence pointing in the direction of Nichol? Like, and these guys are just like, "We don't see you doing this. What? We can't hear you." Like, this is how they're acting.
And a neighbor reported seeing a truck just like Nichol's outside of the Watts home that morning. But the issue with that is Nichol lived 25 minutes away, and it wasn't normal for her phone to ping at this location like it was just some glitch or some tech issue.
It only pinged when she was there and she made a phone call.
Just the night before, when she wasn't home, she was FaceTiming with Chris, and her phone pinged off a completely different tower.
Yes.
Also, like I told you, I did a deep dive into this. I pulled all of the cell phone records, all of the phone pings, everything. Every time that she admitted to the police that she was at Chris's house while Shanann was in North Carolina, those dates, I looked at all of her phone pings and her records. They all pinged off of the tower near his house, which would coincide with her being at his house, right?
Yes.
Other than that, they never pinged at that location if she was not at his house, if she did not admit to being at his house. So now the fact that it just magically, after months, pings at his house, but she says she wasn't there, how does that happen? I don't work for Verizon, but I'm going to call bullshit on that. Nichol didn't make any
said?
phone calls that day either until 2 p.m. And that was very, very abnormal for her. Her cell phone history showed that she usually made a single phone call every single hour while she was awake.
Yep.
So for her to go so long without calling anybody that day was very out of the norm for her. And on top of that, Nichol didn't clock into work until 3 p.m. that day. That was way after she usually was supposed to start work.
And she worked for 45 minutes, called her sex therapist, and then went home.
And what she did when she got to work was really weird and sketchy. She clocked in, and then she made a couple of phone calls to her, quote, spiritual leader, whatever that means, and then she immediately left right afterward. It was almost as though she was trying to create some sort of alibi, going to work, quickly clocking in, making a few phone calls, clocking out, leaving. It just was very bizarre. And like I said, she talked to Chris a few times that day, but the weirdest phone calls happened between 1 and 2 a.m. on August 14th. At 1:12 a.m., they talked for 3 minutes. At 1:51 a.m., they talked for 8 minutes. Then at 1:58 a.m., a detective tried calling Chris. However, when the detective called Chris, he would answer, but it would just be dead air. And this happened for 10 minutes, this like calling back and forth with the detective without being able to hear anything. And between one of these calls during the back and forth, Chris actually called Nichol again and they talked for 1 minute. Then Chris called the detective back from his work phone. Now, in the meantime, while he was on the phone with the detective, Nichol called Chris's personal phone and he answered it. Both of those phone calls lasted for 11 minutes. Now, I know that was kind of confusing, so let me break it down for what a lot of people, myself included, have been speculating. Chris was trying to secretly set up a 3-way call between him, the detective, and Nichol, but it wasn't working. That's why it kept going back and forth for 10 minutes with the detectives and they weren't able to hear anything, and it was just dead air. So instead, Chris called the detective on his work phone, probably put it on speakerphone, and then Nichol called Chris on his personal phone so that she could listen in on their conversation to see what they were saying.
But this is not sus at all. Nichol couldn't be involved in any shape or form.
Now again, whether you knew that he was married, didn't know that he was married, at this point, Shanann and the girls are missing, not found. The detective is calling Chris in the middle of the night, trying to get answers, trying to get information so that they could find his pregnant wife and 2 daughters. Mistress or not, why on earth would you need to be a part of that phone call? Why would you need to be a part of that phone call in secret? Unless you're trying to listen in to suss out what the detective knows. Unless you're trying to see, do they have the jump on us? What are they asking? And not even to say that she was maybe involved in the murders, but what do they know about you, Chris? What, how can I help you with your story? It makes no sense to me. If somebody can clear that up for me, why she would need to.
It makes sense to a point of that we know Nichol was involved in some shape or form. But to figure out how, where, when, physically, mentally, emotionally, we need to figure this out. And the only way to do that is to bring Nichol in or go to Chris, ask him 3 little questions. Was Nichol there? Was Nichol involved? Did Nichol help you? That's all you got to ask.
To hear what that phone call was about in the middle of the night while Shanann and the girls were still missing, unless she was trying to suss out information, make it make sense. Because it doesn't. There's also evidence that at one point before the murders, Nichol and Chris talked on the phone, she hung up, she called a clinic, and then she called Chris again. Now, she apparently called this clinic, and she asked if OxyContin was safe to take while you are pregnant. She also asked how much would cause a miscarriage. Now remember, Chris said that he would never say where he got the oxy from, that he was taking it to the grave, which I gotta wonder, who's he protecting? So to me, Nichol is just super, super sketchy, right? I mean, ever since the murders, she has changed her name. She's gone into hiding, which I get it. It's because 99% of the population thinks that she had some sort of involvement in this. So I understand why she wants to, go under the radar. But what's frustrating is the police say that they never looked into her more, all because Chris confessed. So they figured they had their killer. Why keep on looking into it? I'll tell you why. Because this woman is diabolical, in my opinion, allegedly. And honestly, guys, this only scratches the surface of the suspicious things about Nichol. Like I said, I really recommend you go listen to that episode that we already released about her, because that's where we really are playing the interrogation footage. We're playing her interviews. We're going through the screenshots of the phone records. And you can either go listen to that. I did that. Gosh, when did I do that? 2022. maybe it was 2021. So if you want a fresh Nichol deep dive, definitely let me know in the comment section and we can do like a very fresh deep dive.
Oh,
I did that when I first started covering true crime, so I bet you I could dig even a little bit deeper now because I'm better at digging. So if you want a fresh deep dive, let me know. Otherwise, you can go listen to that one. Now, another detail that I just got to point out that has always irked me is Shanann got pregnant while he was having this affair, right? Yeah. And they found out it was a baby boy. This was in the summer while he was actively in this affair with Nichol. And when they found out that it was a boy, they decided on the name Nico. Nico. Nichol spells her name Nichol. Now, I get it's not the exact same, but Nico and Nichol are way too close to comfort for me. So why he wanted to name his son a shorter version of his mistress's name has always really bothered me. Really, really bothered me. Now, since Chris murdered Shanann, Bella, Cece, and Nico, this case has taken the media by storm. That's why in the beginning of this episode, I had said I wasn't ever planning on even talking about this, but so many of you requested a deep dive on Chris and the situation that here I am. It's one that I feel like for some reason or another, people are so invested in and fascinated with, even though it's case closed. And my opinion on that and why that is because the public doesn't believe it's case closed. They still believe that somebody else had a hand in this and should be held accountable, namely Nichol. Yes. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. But if I'm being honest, I could do without ever hearing about Chris Watts again. I mean, he is truly a disgusting, diabolical, just gross human being, and I hope his ass rots in prison. Well rot. And I hope girls who are sending him this like fan mail and fangirling over him get their heads screwed on right. Like, this guy is a diabolical quadruple murderer. I don't care what the reason was. I don't care if it was a blind rage. Get a grip. Get a grip. There are plenty of fish in the sea. All right, guys, that's my rant for today. So let me know in the comments if you want the fresh Nichol deep dive or if the other one will suffice. Thanks for tuning in with me. I know it was an extra long one today.
Oh man, I would love to be able to collab with this woman on a Nichol Kessinger deep dive. I have so much information and so much stuff that I could help contribute to Anna Elise. Hopefully, maybe if the YouTube gods hear me and she can see my stuff and be like, oh, let's collab. I would love it. So with that being said, make sure you guys comment your guys' thoughts and partake on this. If you guys disagree, agree, so forth, I definitely love to talk with you guys, discuss and talk crime when it comes to Chris Watts and his case. Again, thank you guys for being here. Please take care, be safe. As always, keep nerding on, and we will see you guys in the next video. Peace.